Welcome to God's Sheep Testimony Tuesday. You're not just walking into a studio, you're stepping into purpose. This is a safe space where the sheep of God can come and testify His glory and remind the world that God is still in the blessing business. Your story matters. Your journey carries power. Your voice brings healing, not just to you, but to someone else who needs to hear it. Welcome to Testimony Tuesday. It is me, Tatisha L. Phelps, but you can call me Ta. Ta-da! Because once you meet me, you'll never forget me, and that is a fact. I am sitting here today, and I am going to make sure that I value my brother's time. I am here with Dwayne Clay. He is coming before you today to just testify. But before we get started, just let you give some background of who you are.
All right, awesome. Well, I'm currently living and located in Texas. I am a pastor and Bible teacher. Been in the ministry here for about 10 years now and just allowing the Lord to lead and guide my life. And so I'm just happy to be here and to be able to share my testimony for the glory of God. Amen.
Amen. So I'll just tell you guys that I met my brother online. He was talking some talk that I really liked. But before we get into that, we're just going to jump right on into this testimony. And I have a couple of questions that I want to ask. And let's just start with, who were you before the person that is sitting with us today? Who was that person?
That's a deep question, but I'll try to start where I can. Amen. I would say that just a lost young man, very bitter. I just envied life. I just had no type of love in my heart. I remember as a teenager, I spent majority of my youth in corrections. And so I always regretted that. I had spent about a month into high school. And so I missed out on proms and dates and just any and all, experiences that young men get today. And so I had a bitter heart towards life. And I remember during that time that I really was angry and upset with the thought of God. Because I couldn't understand how my life ended up where it was. Even though it was my actions, still I kind of resented God because he didn't allow me to not get in trouble for my behavior. And so I was a young man that was just lost, just heartless, and had no value for life. And it ended me in so many different situations where my life was being taken.
Okay, well, let me pause you right there. Let me ask you a question. And I know we didn't talk about this question, but I wanted to just backtrack a little bit because you talk about this young man. Can you tell us a little bit about what triggered that behavior? Was it something that you experienced that triggered those behaviors?
Yeah, so I had 6 other siblings, and my parents, I never really got to meet my father. And so I did have a stepfather, but he was very abusive and he was dealing with alcoholism. And so me and my siblings, we had adapted to the streets, to the world for that comfort and that security that we were looking for, that purpose as a young man. And so the reality was my mother was never at home. She was pursuing her career. I believe my mother did a total of like 20 years of college. And my father was my stepfather was in the home front during that time. And I just remember days where I would never see my mom. Like when I woke up, she was gone. When I went to bed, she was gone. And it was like that for years. And so I missed that nurturing from a mother. I missed that support from a mother. And so the only encounter that I had in my childhood was always discipline, was always rough, was always, abuse. And so that kind of triggered I like to call it a snakeskin effect, where it just hardened me instead of leading me towards any compassion or love in my heart. Yeah.
So for the audience who are listening, just so that if they're looking, someone may can relate to this. Is that a physical abuse or mental abuse or emotional abuse, or was it a combination of it all?
It was a combination of it all. My father was very abusive with, whoopings, beatings. He was very verbal as well. That was, the home front is where you're supposed to receive, your confidence, your security. And so for me, growing up, I always heard things like, you're dumb, you're stupid, you're worthless. things of that nature. So that kind of embedded in my brain, and I started to believe it because that's what I heard first, and so that's what was planted first, and so it began to grow. And looking back at the side effects of my behavior, I would see that as a side effect. I would hear that from others, the courtroom, the judges, the teachers, the peers, and so I was convinced that I didn't have any value in life.
Wow. So what I hear you say is that we got to be very strategic about the seeds we plant in our children, our offsprings, because they will take on that character.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I would definitely agree upon that without a shadow of a doubt. I think that that's what led me into the father that I am today and not allowing my children to experience what I experienced. Sometimes it's not the good that we experience that molds us. Sometimes it's the negative, it's the bad.
So the negative is what draws out the purpose, huh?
Amen. Say that.
All right, so let's tell the people like sometimes you gotta go through it in order to find your purpose, right? God ain't gonna just plant it into you, right? He gonna make you work for it. He gonna make you go through some things. He gonna pull back some layers.
Amen.
So with
Amen.
that being said, let's get to this point because I heard you talking about your parents in life. So before we tap into that, let me ask you, like, what was your breaking point? What was the breaking point that said, you know what, enough of this? I don't want to do this anymore. Describe that moment in life that brought you to your knees.
That's a good question. Okay, so when I was around 20 years old, I had a baby on the way. Baby mother was pregnant, and I was in the streets heavily during this time. And at this time, like I said, I invested majority of my youth in the streets. So with that
Mhm.
being said, I was able to move up different ranks within, gang activity and things of that nature. And so one day I had ended up having an encounter where I went in with a couple of my friends to unalive some individuals. So it was actually a hit that we
Mhm.
took out on a opposition gang. And when that crime occurred, after the crime, I was at home and there was a one of the participants was caught. And then not to add, the victims survived the crime. And so, with that being said, long story short, I began to be on the run for attempted murder. And so, during this time, what it ended up doing is it ended up slowing me down because now I couldn't depend on my way of survival, which was hustling in the streets, because I couldn't be in the streets. Not only was I wanted
Mhm.
by the law, but now I'm also wanted by opposition. And so during this time, I was segregated. I was separated from the world, not knowingly, not knowing. And so when this occurred and I was on the run, there was a day that occurred where my son, he was a month old, and he was dropped off at my doorstep. And the baby mother of mine, she knocked on the door and she walked away. Man, yeah,
So just to be clear, when she knocked on the door, what you're saying is that she left that baby
she
on that
left.
step.
She left the baby. She
So now
left.
you on the run. You
Now I'm
got
on the
your
run.
opposing gang looking for you. Now you got a 1 month old baby on the porch. What's next?
I just remember I opened the door, and when I saw the baby for the first time in my life, I felt my heart feel an emotion that it never felt before. I can
Mhm.
only describe it in a way that it felt like it felt inappropriate. It felt uncomfortable. And
Mhm.
not knowing myself that it was
It was
love.
something new, right? It was
It
something
wa
new.
it was new. It was very new. And, when I laid eyes upon my son, it did something to me because my
Mm,
whole life flashed over my mind, and all I could think of is that when these people come get me, I won't be able to be a part of this child's life at all. And I
mhm.
started to think about how he didn't deserve that. What did he do to deserve to not have a I'm sorry. What did he do to not deserve to have a father? And it brought me back down to memory lane of, the abuse and the neglect and all of these things that I endured. And I thought to myself that, that was hard for me, but to just absence, no father, no type of contact, no support. And so that's what it brought me back to. And I remember when I brought my son into the home, I couldn't even think. I couldn't
Mm.
even think because I didn't know what to do. I didn't, you're talking to a man that is just molded in just havoc and streets and drugs and things of this nature. And here comes this newborn baby that needs nurturing, who needs love, who needs diaper changes. I didn't know
This
how to
innocent baby.
and
Innocent. Wow. Wow. So at that moment, when you was in a place of distress, confusion, how did you get through that?
when this occurred, when I brought the child into the home, my son into the home, the first thing that came to my mind was what my grandmother would always tell me. She said, Dwayne, if you ever find yourself in trouble, you ever are placed in a situation where you can't help yourself, she always said, get on your knees and cry out to God.
Mm.
And that just kept playing in my mind, kept playing in my mind. And what was amazing about this story is the place that I was hiding out on the run was her home. It was my
Mm.
grandmother's.
Mm. Nothing
And-
like a
and
pregnant grand.
nothing like God rest her soul. And she wasn't at home at the moment when he was dropped off. She was gone. But her words was just ringing through my ear. I just knew what she would say. I just knew what she would request for me to do. And it was crazy because I grew up going to church my whole life, but I never believed in God. And this is why
Mm.
I always tell people just because you see a person practicing something doesn't mean that they believe in it. We do a lot of things under pressure, under influence, and it has no purpose in our hearts.
For repetition, right? We do
Well,
it because that's what our parents tell us to do. This is how we supposed to do, right?
yeah, yeah. Good
So let
tradition.
me ask you this question. Was it this moment that allowed you to start seeking God?
Yeah, that's where I'm going. So when her words were playing in my mind at that moment, I had no other choice. I mean, it was like nothing mattered in life, and then all things that matter in life was right before me. It was like
Mm.
just picking between two obstacles, right or go left. And so at that moment, I dropped down on my knees and I cried out to God for the first time. And I remember telling the Lord, I said, Lord, if you allow me to be in this boy's life, I will give you my life. I give it to you. And when I said those words, it was out of desperation. I meant them, but I didn't mean them. I just wanted a
Mhm.
miracle to occur. I just wanted the situation to disappear. I remember getting feedback of the other individuals that were involved in the crime. They were getting sentenced to big numbers. Ooh, when they called me, it was over for me. And I prayed that prayer and I meant it out of my heart though. I said, Lord, if you can allow me to be in my son's life, I would give you my life. And what ended up occurring is I ended up waking up every day with this young man. Ended up bathing him, washing him, changing his diaper. So all of these activities, there's no influence around me, no streets, no friends, no nothing. So it's just me, this child, in the Lord. So
Mm.
this whole experience is building love, attachment, nurturing. It was amazing to me because everything that I was learning, it felt like the Lord was reaching down from heaven and just placing it into my mind. This is how you do this. This is how you do that. This is how you put him to sleep. This is how you hold him. And it was just like a natural instinct. And that
Mm.
experience alone made me not want to desire the streets anymore. I didn't want the streets no more. I didn't want the addiction I had anymore, but I had it. I didn't want to be the man I was anymore, but I was. I was still
Yeah.
him.
Yeah. So how did you overcome that?
The Lord proved himself. So I remember about 6 months later, after I received my son, his mother got in contact with me and she wanted to see him. She wanted him back. But at this time, I was too bitter, too mad at her for the choice she made, and I was too attached. And so I refused. And
Mhm.
so she did what she did. She knowing I'm on the run, she called the police and told them where I was. And
Mm.
so what ended up occurring is she gave them my location, but they didn't come into the house that night. They waited till I went outside in the morning I believe I went to go grab the mail or something like that. And when I went down there, they were already waiting. They were already surveillance and waiting patiently. And they took me into custody. And I remember my son was upstairs and I broke down again. because in my mind, I'm like, oh my goodness, here it goes. I'm gone. And I can't take my son with me. He's upstairs and my grandma was up there. And all I could think to myself is this is the last time I see him. This is it.
Mm,
And the experience that I just had, I didn't want to end. I didn't want to separate from him. I was
mhm,
willing to give up my life for this young boy. Everything I ever knew, I was willing to give away for him. Because in that 6 months, I fell in love. That six
mm,
months, I became a father. I gained a heart. And I remember them booking me that night, and I'm sitting in jail, and I'm praying. I'm praying. Lord, Lord, prove yourself. Lord, prove yourself. If you are real, show me yourself. And I fell asleep crying. And when I woke up, the sheriff, the officer, amen,
mhm.
came to my cell and he calls my name. He says, Dwayne, Clay, wrap it up. You're getting ready to go. What? So I run up to the door and I said, what do you mean I'm leaving? He said, man, look, I don't know anything about that. I'm doing my job. You are on
Mm,
the list to be released. And he said, I don't know what charges you came in here on last night, but there is nothing in the computer. All charges have been dropped.
wow. So did God prove himself or what?
It was as if I was Peter, or I'm sorry, Paul, in the jail just opened up. The jail doors just opened up. And the amazing part about it was I received all the paperwork from my co-defendants. And during this duration and time, they all took their prison sentence. None of them
Mm,
told. That showed me off the bat that doesn't occur. No one's gonna give me up. No one. I orchestrated it. I led these guys into this crime. I led them into giving up their life, and not one of them told on me. Now
mhm.
all of a sudden, I'm being released. The charges are dropped. He went beyond proving himself. He parted the Red
Mm,
Sea.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. In real life, right here, in living color. That's awesome. So for people who watching, God is still in the blessing business.
Yes, he
God is
is.
still in the blessing business. So where is your walk with God today? What take us on that journey of what that looked like from that moment to where we are right now.
Amen. Okay, so from that moment, what ended up occurring is after I was released out of jail and everything was
Mhm.
dropped, I began to have a distaste for everything that I had pleasure in. And I started to notice that everything about what I enjoyed doing, hanging out, drinking, drugs, the Lord was beginning to deliver me from them. He was taking the taste out of my being. And now all of a sudden, all I cared about was family, was the Lord, was seeking him. And I remember that I was at this time, I was still battling my cocaine addiction. But I was trying though. And I remember that I would go like a week and I would relapse. I would go a month, then I would relapse. I would go a couple months and relapse. And I was seeing the Lord pull me further and further away. Deliver me, deliver me, deliver me. And all of a sudden, what ends up occurring is that for 2 weeks, I'll never forget this. Couldn't go to sleep for 2 weeks.
Mm,
And so every day I would sleep for like 1 hour, 2 hours. It was naps. But I couldn't fall into a deep sleep. And during these naps, I would have these visions and these dreams. And they would be
mm,
so weird to me. And every time it would be like, I can't even explain it. It was like I would be brought to a heavenly place and then I'd wake up back on the earth.
hmm,
And I couldn't understand what it meant. Couldn't understand. And then next thing I knew, every time I would take my son out and I would see other children, I began to have like a love for all kids. Like I started
mhm.
feeling like every child that passed me was mine.
So
And I
God was
couldn't
multiplying your
understand.
love.
I couldn't understand it. I couldn't. And I remember what ended up occurring because now at this point, me and my wife today, we just met and we just started dating. And she came into my life where I was really messed up, but she was there. And I remember during these 2 weeks, I remember the 14th day. And I was going to go check myself into a mental institution because
Mhm.
by this point, the sleep depravity was causing me to now start seeing things. And at this point, I didn't know if it was God. I didn't know if it was mental illness, if it was myself. I was confused. And so what all I knew is I needed help. And I'll never forget, we're on our way to go head to a mental place. And I say to the Lord, after he already proved himself, I say, Lord,
Mhm.
show me yourself. Show me. Prove to me that you are 100% real. Listen to me, I'm Thomas. And we're driving, going to this mental institution. And the Lord leads my wife past this church.
Mm.
And we immediately pull into the church parking lot. The service was
Mhm.
just starting. It was like we was perfectly on time. And I get out the car and I walk into the church. And when I enter into the church, the pastor knew I was on my way.
Hmm.
He knew. He said, I was waiting for you. The Lord told me you were coming.
Wow.
It was too many encounters. It was too many encounters. That's why I can't, it's impossible for me not to believe God exists. It's impossible. I don't know about everybody else, but for me, it's impossible. And when I walked into this church, listen to what this man did. He placed me on the minister board to be trained as a minister. That make
Mhm.
no sense. No
Hmm.
sense. And he was doing it based off of his encounter with the Lord. He
Wow.
wasn't doing it based off of, the right steps or stages or what have you. He was basing it off of what the Lord was telling him to do. We didn't know each other from Adam and Eve.
Obedience is a thing.
Amen. Amen. And so I remember that day, I remember crying out to this pastor and telling him everything that was going on. And he knew. He knew. He was repeating the words before they could come out of my mouth. He knew. Couldn't sleep.
Hmm.
And that was the Lord. I realized that was the Lord holding me accountable to my promise. See, he was still watching my lifestyle. He was still watching my thoughts. He was still paying attention to my intentions, but he never forgot what I said to him. And he came through on his promise. And now it was time for me to come through on mine.
So when you couldn't go to sleep, God was telling you it's time to commune with me.
It's time to come. Yep.
Mhm.
Time to give yourself.
Wow.
And I remember that day I went home and I fell asleep. Fell asleep like a baby, like it was all over. But this was one of the main components, but the major component was that during this time I'm on this minister board, right? I'm being trained. I'm going to church every week. I found myself relapsing again. After 6 months, I remember I was able to stay off of drugs for 6 months. And this goes to show you how deeply embedded addiction was in my life. No matter how much I fought it, it kept arising. And so I went 6 months, and I remember the day I relapsed. I come home, and my wife, but during the time we were just dating, she tells me she's leaving me. She's gone. She's like, I can't deal with this. I've been through so
Mhm.
much with you. You were a broken man, and I endured. And my wife, my girlfriend at the time, she endured everything.
Hmm.
She womanizing, abuse, because everything that was deposited in me was the only thing I was able to bring out of me.
Hmm.
I had nothing else. I didn't know how to love a woman. I didn't know how to appreciate a woman. I didn't know how to be a man, a boyfriend, a spouse. I didn't know those things. They weren't planted in me.
Right.
I could only give you what I had. But not knowing the Lord was behind the scenes raising me and
Hmm.
fathering me.
Hmm.
And I remember she packs all her bags. She's really finna leave. And the only thing I could think in my mind was, this ain't worth this.
Hmm.
Drugs, like getting high and losing the love of your life, losing the foundation of your home and the structure, it's not worth it. And I'm begging God, like, Lord, I'm asking you to deliver me from this. You didn't took me out of the world, you didn't took me out of the streets, but I'm asking you to deliver me from this addiction. And you're not. It keeps coming back. And I'm losing everything. And not only to say this is putting
Hmm.
my guardianship into jeopardy, right? You can't be an
Mhm.
addict and be a father. And at the same
Mhm.
time, once again, I'm ministering at a church. How hypocritical is this? But a lot of people don't understand the process.
Yeah.
But so I go to sleep that night, and that night I go to sleep, I have a dream that I'm pastoring at a church, and my mother, my grandmother, and my wife are sitting in the front pew. And when I wake up in the morning, I'm bugging because I didn't mention this as well, but I couldn't read. I didn't know how to
Mhm.
read.
Yes, come on and tell them. Tell them the story.
So even when I would bring forth Bible verses during my time at the church, or they would call me to do the verse of the day on Sundays, I would listen to that verse over and over until I memorized it. And I would go up to the pulpit and open up the Bible at any chapter and just repeat what I was listening to the whole week so that I could bring forth the verse.
Come on. Keep telling what God did. Come on.
And so when I had this dream, the Lord is calling me, and he says to me in the dream, I want you to read the Bible from Genesis to Revelations and to erase everything you've ever learned from man. He kept saying it, kept saying it, and he emphasized, erase everything you learned from man. So when I woke up in the morning, my wife today, but girlfriend then, she turns over. Remember, she's getting ready to leave me. Her bags are packed. And she says to me, you won't believe the dream I just had. And I say, boy, I said, what is it? She said, you won't believe you was a pastor of a church preaching. And your mama, me, and your grandma was sitting in the front pew. Now, how could she possibly have the identical dream that I had? How? That wasn't enough. Look, the Lord knew I had a little doubting Thomas in me. He knew it. At the same morning, a couple hours later, after my wife reveals to me that she had the dream, I get a call from the pastor's son, whom me and my family used to go to church with. So this was my church home as a kid. My family went there for years, for like 15 years. He calls me. He says, I've been looking for you because we haven't been in touch for years. And he says, I had to go through social media and I found your account on Facebook, and he called me through Messenger. And he calls me to say, I had to tell you this. I had a dream last night.
We can't make this up.
And you was the pastor of the church. And he explains your mama, your grandmama, and your girlfriend was sitting in the front pew. It still ain't enough. So now I'm going through the whole day. I can't believe this. Why would God want me? Why would he want me? What could I possibly do for him? He waits all the way to the evening and has another friend who went to the same church I grew up in to call again. Same dream. So I remember going back into this mode where I couldn't sleep again. I've already experienced this. I know what this means by now. I got a choice to make. And so it was so hard for me to go get a Bible and believe to myself that I can open up this book and read it. I can't read. Never learned my whole life. And you're telling me to read a book and I can't read. You're giving me a vision of pastoring and I can't read. That don't make sense. So I open up the book and I'm sitting there. And when I open up to Genesis, I begin to see the vowels, the A, E, I, O, U. I begin to see the sounds that the letters made. I can't make it up. I'll never forget. It was like in the beginning. And when those words came out of my mouth, I was like, God is so real. How did this just happen? How do I know what this said? And I'll never forget, my wife was just amazed. She's watching this whole experience herself. She's there. She knows she filled out all my paperwork. She knows she's filled out every application, every job, every whatever. She's watching me. And I began to read this Bible. And as I read it, I'm getting better and better. I'm seeing more and more. And after reading the Bible from Genesis to Revelations, which took me about 3 years, I'm in this church and the Lord is showing me everything wrong with the building. Everything wrong. He didn't place me in the church underneath the care so that I could absorb what I was seeing. He was showing me what to stay away from.
He was
The
exposing.
division, everything. Everything. I'll never forget that my wife went and bought a brand new car, and they would choose me every time a guest person came to speak. They would choose my car as the valet because of what vehicle type and make and model it was.
perception.
I said, this is a game. Now remind you, I just got done reading the Bible. And what I found out was everything that I've ever learned from the building is not in the book. That this is not about religion. This book is about faith and a relationship with the Lord. The titles, they're not even in the book.
Mhm.
The denominations, the Bible speaking about the world becoming of one nation. The chosen nation of Israel, the Jews, is speaking about everyone coming to a relationship, personal, with God.
That's it.
So I'm seeing everything that's wrong, everything, and it's not making sense. So now what starts making sense is erase everything you've learned from man. Now that's making sense
Hmm.
because it doesn't exist.
Hmm.
So me and my wife, we stay faithful. We keep going to this church. I'm learning a lot of what I shouldn't do. And remember I told you I started gaining a love for kids. So what ends up happening is I get to a point where I'm comfortable enough to start ordering children Bibles.
Hmm.
And me and my wife go to a community neighborhood center. The Lord leads us there. And they open up the building for us to use. So they gave me a key to the building. I had full access to the building. And so what I ended up starting to do is I ended up starting to go out to the community and witness the gospel of salvation to children, to parents, to whoever I saw. Because this amazing God has transformed my life. He has shown me miracles beyond the common man will ever experience.
Hmm.
I
Oh,
can't doubt him. I can't run from him. I got to serve him.
yeah, yeah,
Nothing else
yeah.
matters. I lost my old life. Them friends and stuff from the streets, they don't like me no more. Family separated from me. Oh my goodness, he's not the same. See, they love the drug dealer. They love the alcoholic. They love drug addict. That's what they loved about me.
Yes. Come on
They
now.
didn't like this new guy. They hated him. And so I would go out and evangelize and bring in the youth every Friday, me and my wife. And what was amazing also at this time, my wife was just in a car accident. So she was disabled for about 5 years. So this was a very rough time in our life financially. But I remember we would order and go purchase hot dogs and things of that nature, cheap items. And we would have food for the kids and we would teach them the Bible every Friday.
Mm.
And next thing I knew, it was like 60 kids started coming.
You became that preacher.
The parents started coming. The whole community started coming. It went from the kids' Bible to the Holy Bible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I'll never forget that one Friday, I have this church come in and they say, "Can you become the pastor of our church?" I said, "What?" They said, "Our pastor had to step down due to some funny activity. And we're missing a leader. And we've heard about you. My kids come here, their parents are coming here, and we hear some great things about you and how the Lord has used you. And we feel fit that it would be only right if you could lead our congregation." And so I remember all of it coming together. And nothing I did to bring it together. Just fell into place. And I'll never forget that Sunday, I walk into this community center, the
Hmm.
chair, my mother, my grandmother, and now no longer my girlfriend, my wife, sitting in the front pews, and I'm preaching.
Was that the dream? Come on. So let me
That was
ask
the
you,
dream.
where is this kid now? How old is this baby now?
Lord, baby, he's 16.
16 years old. God kept his promise.
16.
God
And
kept
and
his.
it's amazing because I knew that he was gonna be different. By the age of 5, I was getting calls from his school because he was preaching. I just got a letter 3, 4 weeks ago, and they just advanced him to the 12th grade from the 10th grade.
Come on.
So my point in this is not to brag, it's to say having a man of God and a father figure that's led by the Lord in the home
Mm.
makes a tremendous difference for everyone in the household. We as men don't realize the responsibility and the value that we have in our rightful positions under the Lord's
Yeah.
guidance.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let me ask you a question before we close out. What would you say to someone who's watching this that may be experiencing what would you say to them?
I would tell them that for sure tomorrow is not promised. It's not promised. And that whoever you are today, the Lord can transform. The Lord can renew you. He can add value. He can add purpose. And whatever you missed out on, whatever love, whatever nurturing, whatever support that you lacked your whole life, the Lord will come into your life and replace all that is missing and become all that you ever need.
Oh,
All,
let's say that with the capital letters, all that you need.
all.
That's some good stuff. That's some good stuff. I
Mhm.
just want to just give some clarity. So you never made it to the mental institution because the minister became needed to guide you.
There you go. There you go.
All right, we got a minute.
Yeah. You
That's
stopped
the
it.
devil don't want to get us in. The
That's
devil
it.
don't he don't want us to get it out.
No, he don't.
But I was saying this is where the whole thought of this podcast came in, just to come on and just share his glory, to show other people who are going through to hold on a little longer, that what they're going through is not in vain, right? But there is something on the other side, right? So if
Amen.
we just continue to hold on to God's unchanging hand, hey, listen, the purpose is right there, right?
Amen.
So I encourage you to stay strategic, humble, empowered, equipped, and in position on purpose. Continue to be God's sheep. And that's our time. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you. It was an honor. It was an honor.
You've heard the testimony. Remember, every brand has a story, and every story has a brand. We'll see you here every third Tuesday as we testify God's glory. Thanks for watching.